You ever wonder what silence really sounds like? Not the silence of an empty room, not the quiet of a midnight street. I'm talking about the silence after a world has died. That's the silence echo men are forced to hear. And Cain was one of them, locked 7 kilometers beneath the surface of Terra. He had one job: to listen, to record, to translate the death of entire worlds. When the Imperium orders an exterminatus, the complete destruction of a planet, it doesn't just erase cities, armies, or empires. It erases voices, billions of voices, and Cain would sit there, headset on, while the last screams of those worlds poured directly into his mind. Imagine that for a second. Every whisper, every final breath, every broken cry for salvation. From billions, reduced to noise on a transmission line, most people would go insane. Cain? He turned it into routine. Every recording became just another report, just another file, just another dead world. But short pause, lower voice. Over time, Cain started noticing something. The voices weren't just random noise. There was structure, hidden patterns, something intelligent. At first, it was small, a repeated sound, a strange echo, a phrase that didn't feel accidental. But then, it grew. The transmissions began to speak, and what they revealed was impossible. The dead worlds weren't silent graves. They were learning. Every exterminatus, every destroyed planet, added more to their collective voice. And that voice? It was evolving faster than any human mind could follow. What once sounded like static now whispered secrets Cain shouldn't have known. Blueprints of Imperial facilities. Details about extermination weapons classified above the rank of most inquisitors. Even personal data about citizens who were still alive. Short pause. Whisper tone. Information that should not exist. According to the voices, they existed outside of space and time itself. A realm built from psychic energy born out of mass extinction. A shadow universe overlapping our own. From there, they could watch. They could listen. They could learn. Without ever being detected. Cain realized something horrifying. The Imperium thought exterminatus was a weapon to preserve humanity. But the truth? It was feeding them. Every world burned. Made them stronger. Every population wiped out. Added to their numbers. They told Cain themselves, every world you destroy makes us stronger. Every population you cleanse adds to our numbers. Pete, heavy pause. The Imperium believed it was protecting itself, but in reality it was raising parasites. Parasites that fed on extinction itself. And worse, the voices hinted that exterminatus decisions, which worlds to burn, which methods to use, who to spare, who to condemn, weren't purely Imperial choices. They were being influenced, guided, shaped by the very entities who gained power from death, which meant the galaxy's ultimate weapon wasn't in the Imperium's control anymore. It was in theirs. Deep pause. Softer, tense delivery. Cain suddenly understood. He wasn't just documenting transmissions. He was collaborating. Whether he wanted to or not, Cain tried to keep working. Tried to keep his reports neat, his tone professional, as if nothing had changed. But deep down he knew. Every transcript, every line he typed, was feeding something monstrous, and that knowledge was breaking him. He began keeping secret records, private notes hidden in the smallest corners of his files. Not just the sounds, not just the screams, but the intelligence behind them. How the voices were becoming sharper, clearer, how they were evolving. And the more he wrote, the more they spoke back. Cain's accuracy began to slip. Static blurred into words. Words twisted into messages. And soon his supervisors noticed. Short pause. Tense tone. Dr. Thorne was the first. During a routine examination, her voice was cold, clinical. Your neural stress indicators have increased 14% since last month, she said. You're showing signs of selective filtering. Possible trauma-induced hearing loss. Tell me, Cain, when did you first notice difficulty distinguishing between transmission content and interference? It was more than a question. It was a warning. If Cain admitted too much, he'd vanish. just like the 17 other Echo Men who had disappeared before him. So he lied. Carefully. The transmissions have become more complex, he explained. Overlapping frequencies, multiple voice patterns, maybe atmospheric echo effects. Thorne's stylus scratched across her datapad. Her face never changed. Echo effects are not uncommon, she said flatly. The important distinction is whether you're experiencing hallucinations. Hallucinations. That word hung heavy in the room, because everyone knew what it meant. If Kane was seen as delusional, he wouldn't get treatment. He'd get erased. So he played along. He let her stamp the report. 3 weeks administrative duty, she said. No transmissions. No recordings. Let your auditory system recover. On the surface, it sounded like mercy. But Kane understood the truth. He was being isolated, watched, judged. Was he still useful? Or was he a liability? Short pause. Lower voice. Those 3 weeks were supposed to be rest. But instead, Kane discovered something far worse. His new assignment? Filing old transmission reports. Databases stretching back centuries. Routine work. Harmless work. But the files revealed things. The Imperium used automated pattern analysis programs to scan exterminatus transmissions. And those programs had been flagging anomalies. Not once. Not twice. 73%. 73% of all transmissions contain deliberate, organized patterns. Connections across different planets. Events separated by light years, yet tied together, like threads in one massive growing web. And those reports? Classified. Buried so deep. Not even Echo Men were supposed to see them. But Kane saw them. And the truth was undeniable. The transmissions weren't random. They were coordinated. They were alive. Beat. Whisper. The dead worlds were talking to each other. And Kane wasn't the only one who noticed. During his second week of administrative leave, he met another Echo Man, Declan Holtz. 15 years of service. The same haunted eyes. The same tremor in his hands. And the same story. The patterns are accelerating, Holtz whispered, pretending to file reports. Whatever's behind the transmissions, it's preparing for something. The messages are more urgent, more specific. Timing, coordination. Kane's blood ran cold. How many others have noticed? He asked. Holt's answer chilled him to the bone. All of us, every Echo Man, had seen the same anomalies. Some reported them, others ignored them, but none could escape them. The voices would not allow it. Short pause, rising intensity. And that meant only one thing. The Imperium knew. The supervisors weren't blind. They weren't dismissing reports. They were allowing it, encouraging it. The Echo Men weren't broken tools. They weren't risks to be erased. They were conduits, living channels, human components of a machine designed for one purpose, not to document death, but to communicate with it. Deep pause, almost whisper. Exterminatus wasn't just a weapon. It was a conversation. Kane's leave ended after 3 weeks, and when he stepped back into Vault Turs Delta, everything looked the same. Same metal walls, same sterile consoles, same endless hum of the machines. But for Kane, nothing was the same anymore. He now knew the truth. He wasn't listening to death. He was communicating with it. The headset lowered over his ears. The next Exterminatus transmission began. Forge World Metallica Quintus, a planet overrun by chaos. Its machine spirits corrupted beyond redemption. Virus bumps, cyclonic torpedoes. The cleansing had been swift, absolute. And then, short pause, whisper tone. The voices came. Welcome back, Matos Kane. Not static, not screams. Direct, clear, purposeful. We have grown stronger during your absence. New voices join us. Our influence expands. You are prepared now for the work ahead. Kane's blood froze. They weren't pretending anymore. No disguises. No chaos of noise. This was direct communication. And worse. The voices sounded pleased. The bargain struck between your masters and our collective nears completion. Each world cleansed by imperial mandate adds to our power. And to theirs. Through death, we grow. Through growth, we prepare. for transformation. Heavy pause. Slow, deliberate delivery. The Imperium wasn't fighting them. The Imperium was feeding them. Exterminatus was never just a purge. It was a harvest, and the Inquisition knew it. Kane's fingers moved across the transcript pad, automatically typing the official version. Atmospheric interference. Random vocalizations. But in his mind, he absorbed every word. This was no accident, no anomaly. This was design. The Imperium was using Exterminatus to communicate with entities beyond reality itself, trading billions of lives for knowledge, for power. And Kane? He was the scribe, the loyal pen. The Echo Men weren't victims. They weren't prisoners. They were conduits, selected, conditioned, prepared for decades to channel forbidden intelligence into human hands. Short pause. Dark whisper. Every stress marker. Every sleepless night. Every symptom of collapse. It wasn't failure. It was success. They weren't breaking. They were adapting, becoming vessels, perfectly attuned to voices that no ordinary human could survive hearing. Kane realized this with a despair deeper than anything he'd felt while listening to billions die. He thought he had been a victim of imperial cruelty, but in truth, he had been shaped, molded into something useful, a component of a cosmic atrocity. Beat, lower, more intense. And then came the final horror. During the death of Cardinal World Sanctus Lux, a planet with 12 billion faithful citizens and no heresy, the voices revealed the truth. The threshold approaches. 30 millennia of cultivation. 30 millennia of careful harvesting. Now it begins. Every extermination in history. Every dead world. Every Echo Man. All of it had been orchestrated. The dead weren't just feeding. They were building a network of consciousness. Each planet a node. Each Echo Man a conduit. And with Sanctus Lux, the network was complete. The barriers between dimensions grow thin. The voices whispered, "Soon we will no longer need the medium of dying worlds." The resonance has reached critical mass. The transformation begins with the next order. Beat, whispering intensity. They weren't going to just feed anymore. They were going to emerge, and they would do it using imperial weapons. Cyclonic torpedoes, virus pumps, planet killers. The Imperium's own hand turned against itself. Kane's mind reeled. This wasn't extermination. This was ascension. The voices spoke again. "You are the keys, Kane. You and your kind, prepared to carry knowledge no one else can bear. With you we step into your reality." Kane had no choice, no resistance, no way out. Either remain an unwitting servant or embrace his role as a willing collaborator. Both paths led to the same end. The Echo Men were trapped, and humanity itself had already lost. And Kane realized he had been speaking with the dead all along. Kane thought he had heard it all. Worlds burning, cities collapsing, billions crying out in their final breaths. But nothing prepared him for this. The next transmission didn't sound like death. It sounded like life. Not chaos, not despair, but breathing, heartbeat like rhythms, a pulse. At first, Kane thought it was interference, but then the voices returned. This is the moment. Matos Kane. The resonance converges. The child awakens. Short pause. Uneasy whisper. The child. Kane's throat went dry. He realized he wasn't listening to the end of a world. He was listening to the beginning of something else. An entity born from 30,000 years of exterminated voices, forged from pain, death, and silence. He was its witness, its midwife. The Echo Men weren't scribes anymore. They were attendants. And the vault wasn't a prison. It was a womb. Kane typed with trembling hands. The words spilled faster than he could think, as if his fingers were no longer his own. The message wasn't for the Inquisition. It wasn't even for the Imperium. It was for him. "You will write us into being. You will name us. Through your words, we take form." Kane froze. His reports had always been transcriptions, records of what he heard. But now, they were commands. Every letter he wrote shaped the thing. Every sentence gave it weight. It was creation through transcription. The realization shattered him. All those years, all those notes, all those reports. They weren't just documentation. They were scripture. He had been writing the gospel of a God that should never exist. Deep pause, whisper, and it was almost complete. Then came the final stage. The alarms of Volter's Delta blared. Red lights washed over the steel corridors. An exterminatus order. Another world condemned. But this time Cain wasn't listening to screams. He was listening to the first words of a God. The voice thundered through his headset. No distortion. No static. We are born. Cain's body shook. His ears bled. The console trembled under his hands. But he couldn't stop typing. Every keystroke felt inevitable, preordained. The Inquisition didn't intervene. No one cut the feed. No one stopped him. 'Cause this was the plan. All along. Heavy pause. Almost whispering. The Imperium had birthed a God, made of its own dead, and Cain had named it. When the transmission ended, Cain sat in silence. The console was dead. The room was still. But deep in his bones he knew it wasn't over. The child was here. Not fully, not yet, but awake. And through every echo man, through every hidden vault it would spread. One by one the scribes of death would become apostles of silence. And the Imperium would never even realize that it had been nurturing its own undoing. Cain leaned back, closed his eyes. For the first time in decades he didn't feel alone. Because in the silence, something vast, something endless, was breathing with him, and it whispered its final words into his soul. You are ours now, Cain. You always were. Dramatic pause. Final line. Low and heavy. And in that moment, Mados Cain stopped being an echo man. He became the first prophet of the dead.